It all happened with my best friend, let's call him Jake, when we both turned 18. At the time, I was still very much in the closet, and no one, not a single soul, knew I was gay. Not my parents, not my other friends, and definitely not Jake. I mean, how could they? I didn't exactly look or act the part, whatever that even means, you know? It wasn't like I was hiding it on purpose. It was more like I wasn't ready to even accept it fully myself. But anyway, Jake was this typical straight guy. And when I say typical, I mean every girl in school wanted him. He had this effortlessly perfect look. Tall, built like a freaking athlete, with this sharp jawline that could cut through glass. He was basically model material without even trying. On top of that, he had charisma that made people gravitate toward him. He was the guy everyone liked, and honestly, who could blame them? Honestly, it felt kind of messed up. I mean, this was my best friend. But the more I tried to push those thoughts away, the stronger they got. I'd be lying in bed, late at night, thinking about him, imagining things I knew I shouldn't. It's like every time I'd pleasure myself, the image of him was front and center in my mind. I'd picture what it would feel like if he touched me, kissed me, if we actually, well, you get the idea. So this night I'm talking about, it was pretty typical at first. We were hanging out in Jake's garage, which was like our usual spot. There was nothing special about it. It was a place where we could just chill, away from everyone else. There was this old couch in there, a mini fridge stocked with beer, and enough space for us to just spread out, play video games, or whatever. That night, it was just the two of us and another friend, Jason. We were drinking beer, eating chips, talking about random crap, and laughing about stupid stuff. Just one of those laid-back nights. I remember feeling a little buzzed, definitely not drunk but tipsy enough that I was just more relaxed. Jake and Jason were getting pretty loud, laughing about something dumb, and I kept glancing at Jake, just watching him. It was weird. I felt like I was stuck in this loop where I couldn't stop thinking about how much I wanted him. I'd gotten so used to ignoring those thoughts, but that night, it was like they were louder than usual. Maybe it was the beer, maybe it was because we were all a little drunk and loose, but something was different. Anyway, Jason ended up leaving after a while, and that's when things really kicked off. So it was just me and Jake left in the garage. The vibe was still super chill. We were sitting on the couch, both of us a little buzzed, talking about nothing important. But then, out of nowhere, I just did something. To this day, I don't know what came over me. It was like all those bottled-up feelings, those thoughts I'd been pushing down for so long, just exploded. I scooted closer to him on the couch. And it wasn't just a casual move. I was suddenly really close, like shoulder to shoulder with him, feeling his body heat. He noticed, obviously, and looked at me like, "What's up?" But before I could even think about what I was doing, I reached over and grabbed at his pants. Yeah, just like that. I remember whispering in his ear. The second I said it, I felt his whole body go stiff. The look on his face was priceless. Total shock, like he didn't know whether to laugh it off or push me away. He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I just went for it. I leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't a soft, tentative kiss either. I kissed him hard. His lips felt warm against mine, but at first he resisted. I could feel him tense up, and his hands went to my shoulders like he was going to push me off. For a split second, I thought this was it, that I'd ruined everything. He was going to freak out, push me off, maybe even punch me or something. But then something changed. Slowly, the pressure he was applying to my shoulders weakened. He stopped trying to push me away, and I felt him give in. I could feel it in the way his body relaxed, just a little, but enough for me to know he wasn't fighting me anymore. I kissed him deeper, and eventually he started kissing me back. I don't know how long we kissed, but when I finally pulled back to catch my breath, Jake was just staring at me. His face was flushed, his lips slightly parted, and there was this look in his eyes, like he was still processing what just happened. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds, and I thought maybe he'd snap out of it and tell me to get the hell out of his house. But then, instead of pushing me away, he grabbed my shirt and pulled me back in. I don't even know how to describe what I've been wanting to stop and wanting to keep going. He didn't say a word, just kept breathing hard, staring down at me with this mix of confusion and desire. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my hands shaking, but I didn't stop. I wanted to give him everything I'd been fantasizing about for so long. I'd wanted to go to the every little detail, but I can't do it on YouTube. Let's just say I pleased him in ways I'd only ever imagined in my wildest dreams. It was intense. I could feel every inch of him, hear every breath, every little noise he made. At first, he was stiff, like he didn't know how to react. But as I went on, he started to relax. I could tell he was into it, even if he didn't want to admit it. I felt his body respond, the way his hands moved to my hair, the way his breathing got faster and faster. When it was all over, we both just sat there for a moment, panting and out of breath. The air between us felt thick, like something massive had just happened, and neither of us knew how to deal with it. Jake didn't say anything. He just sat there, staring at the floor, while I tried to figure out what the hell I had just done. Eventually, he stood up, zipped up his pants, and muttered something about how he needed to get to bed. I didn't argue. I just nodded, grabbed my stuff, and left. As I walked home, I couldn't stop replaying everything that had just happened in my head. Had I crossed a line? Had I just ruined everything? But part of me knew that whatever happened next, Jake wasn't going to be able to forget what had just gone down. Neither of us would. The next morning, I can't even describe how weird it felt. I woke up in my own bed, but everything about the night before was still playing on a loop in my head. It felt surreal, like maybe it hadn't really happened, like I had just dreamed the whole thing. But deep down, I knew it was real. And with that realization came this gut-wrenching feeling. What the hell was Jake thinking? Was he freaking out right now, regretting it? I was already regretting how impulsive I'd been, so I could only imagine what was going through his head. I had no idea how to act around him now. Should I call him? Pretend like nothing happened? I thought about texting him, but ended up staring at my phone, too scared to do anything. I was trying to figure it all out when, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. Just a simple, "We need to talk" text. My heart sank. I felt like I was about to walk into a firing squad or something. So I headed over to his place, and the whole time I was on my way there, I was rehearsing what I'd say. Apologize. Try to play it off like no big deal. I didn't know. When I got there, Jake was sitting in his garage again, just like the night before. But this time, the vibe was completely different. He wasn't relaxed, wasn't joking around. He looked pissed, not just annoyed, but like he was holding back some serious rage. I sat down, feeling awkward as hell, and before I could even open my mouth, Jake looked at me and said, "If you ever tell anyone about this, I swear to God, I'll break your neck." I was stunned, but at the same time, I wasn't surprised. It was exactly what I was afraid of. Jake was angry, maybe at me, maybe at himself, but the whole situation was blowing up in front of me. "This didn't happen," he kept saying, like he was trying to convince himself. "We're not talking about it again. You forget it. I forget it. That's it." And yeah, it hurt hearing him say that. After all, I'd been in love with the guy for so long, and in my head, part of me was stupid enough to think that maybe this could lead to something more. But right then, it was obvious that Jake wasn't ready to deal with any of it. He just wanted to bury it and pretend like nothing happened. So I just nodded and said, "Yeah, sure, I get it." We sat there in silence for a minute. I could tell he was fuming, his jaw clenched tight, his fists balled up like he was trying to hold everything inside. I thought that was it, that we'd just go back to pretending nothing happened. But after a long, tense pause, Jake finally spoke again. "Why did you do it?" he asked, his voice low but intense. I wasn't sure if he was asking because he was angry or if he was genuinely confused. Either way, I didn't know how to answer. Should I tell him the truth? That I'd wanted him for years? That I'd been in love with him and it just slipped out? I hesitated, then decided to just be honest. He looked at me with this mixture of shock and something else, something I couldn't quite figure out. But he didn't say anything, didn't immediately blow up at me. He just sat there, thinking, like he was trying to process what I just said. And then, out of nowhere, he stood up and stormed off into the house, leaving me sitting there alone in his garage, feeling like the biggest idiot on the planet. I didn't hear from Jake for the rest of that day or the next. It was like he went completely radio silent, and I didn't know what to think. Was he done with me? Was our friendship over? Had I just messed up the most important relationship in my life? I was beating myself up over it, feeling guilty, confused, and honestly, a little heartbroken. But then, a couple of days later, Jake called. I wasn't expecting it at all. In fact, I was so freaked out when I saw his name pop up on my phone that I almost didn't answer. But curiosity and maybe a little hope got the better of me, and I picked up. He didn't say much, just that he wanted to talk again and that I should come over. This time, when I got to his place, the vibe was different. He didn't look angry anymore. If anything, he looked kind of nervous. It threw me off because Jake wasn't the nervous type. He was always confident, always sure of himself. But this time he was fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, like he was trying to figure out how to say something. We sat down, and there was this long, awkward silence before he finally spoke. "Look, I've been thinking," he said, still not looking at me, "about what happened. And I don't know, it was weird, but it wasn't bad." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just sat there, staring at him, waiting for him to keep going. Jake finally looked up at me, his face flushed, and said, "I don't know what the hell it means, but maybe I'm not as straight as I thought." I was shocked, to say the least. This was Jake, the guy who had always been with girls, who had been adamant that the other night didn't happen. And now here he was, admitting that maybe there was something more going on inside him. "I'm not saying I'm, gay or anything," he continued, stumbling over his words. I could see how hard it was for him to say that. Jake had always been the guy who had it all figured out, who never seemed to question anything about himself. And now he was sitting here vulnerable, admitting that he didn't have all the answers. At that moment I came up to him and started stroking his hair. And he seemed to like it. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. Jake had always been the guy who had everything under control, who never let his guard down. But now, here he was, laying it all out in front of me, admitting that maybe he didn't know everything about himself after all. There was this long silence between us, but it wasn't the same awkward silence from before. This was different. It felt like we were on the edge of something big, like the air was charged with whatever was about to happen next. And then, without saying anything, Jake leaned in and kissed me. This time, it was different from the first time. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It wasn't like he was fighting against it. He kissed me slowly, deliberately, like he had made the decision to do this, and he was okay with it. His lips were warm, soft against mine, and I could feel the tension in his body start to melt away the longer we stayed like that. I kissed him back, my hands gently resting on his shoulders, and I could feel the weight of everything between us. This wasn't just about physical attraction. This was Jake letting go of something, letting himself explore this part of him that he had been too scared to admit existed. It wasn't just about the kiss, it was about the fact that he was finally allowing himself to feel something he'd been pushing down for who knows how long. When we finally pulled apart, Jake was breathing hard, his face flushed. He didn't say anything, but the way he looked at me told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't angry, he wasn't scared, he was curious. He wanted to see where this would go, even if he didn't have all the answers yet. We ended up in his room, the tension between us building as we walked down the hallway. I could feel my heart racing, and I knew his was too. When we sat down on his bed, it wasn't awkward. It wasn't like before when he had been so unsure of what was happening. This time, Jake was the one who took the lead, pulling me closer, his hands on my waist, his breath warm against my neck. It wasn't just about the physical connection, it was about Jake letting go of his fear and uncertainty. I could feel it in the way he touched me, the way he was with me. He wasn't holding back anymore. He wasn't scared of what this might mean for him. He was present, fully in the moment, and I could tell he wanted this just as much as I did. Everything about that night felt different. It was slower, more deliberate, like we were both taking the time to feel everything. And even though it was intense, it wasn't rushed. We were both figuring it out as we went, but it felt right. Afterward, we lay there in the dark, our breathing slowly returning to normal. I glanced over at Jake, and he was staring up at the ceiling, his expression unreadable. But there was something calm about him, like the storm inside him had quieted down. He wasn't fidgeting or avoiding eye contact anymore. He just looked at peace. Neither of us said much, but the silence between us didn't feel heavy. It felt like something had shifted, something big, but neither of us was ready to put it into words yet. Jake wasn't the same guy who had freaked out after the first time. He was starting to accept that maybe he wasn't just the straight guy everyone thought he was. Maybe he was more than that. And for the first time, it didn't seem to bother him. His breath was unsteady as he pulled me in, our faces inches apart now, and I could feel the heat of his skin, the tension between us reaching a breaking point. I could sense how much he was trying to hold himself back, but also how much he didn't want to anymore. The proximity, the quiet intimacy, it all felt like an unspoken admission that he wasn't entirely sure of what he was feeling, but he couldn't deny that he wanted this. There was no rush in the way he pulled me toward him, no panic like before. It was slow, almost careful, like he was exploring something he still didn't fully understand, but was ready to face. His touch was firm but gentle, a supple surrender to the part of himself he had been fighting for so long. In that moment, there was no hesitation, no second guessing. Just a quiet acknowledgement that whatever this was, it wasn't going away. The closeness felt natural, like something that had been waiting to happen all along. The tension between us had transformed into something else, no longer an internal battle for Jake, but a quiet acceptance. The softness of his movements, the way he leaned into me, it all felt different from the frantic energy of our first encounter. This was calmer, more intentional. Jake wasn't fighting anymore. He was giving in, allowing himself to feel what he had been denying. Finally, he put his protection and leaned behind me. You understand what happened. For me, it was a dream finally coming true, being with the guy I had admired for so long, not just in a physical way, but in an emotional one too. The connection between us had grown beyond what I ever thought it could be. This wasn't just about lust or infatuation, it was something more. And I could see that Jake was starting to feel it too, even if he wasn't ready to admit it out loud yet. We started meeting in secret more frequently. It became our thing, this private world that only we inhabited. No one else knew, and that added to the intensity of it all. Every stolen glance when we were with our other friends, every accidental touch, every time we were alone. It felt electric, charged with something neither of us could quite put into words. And Jake, who had once been so nervous, was now more confident, more sure of himself. He didn't look at me with confusion or uncertainty anymore. Instead, there was desire in his eyes, a kind of quiet resolve. We were at college, just another normal day. We both attended the same classes sometimes, and as usual, we hung out together in between lectures. It was one of those days where everything seemed normal on the surface, but there was this tension building up underneath. We hadn't had any time alone in a few days, and I could feel the need between us growing stronger. Jake was getting more comfortable with this new dynamic between us, but being in public still meant keeping things under wraps. We were sitting outside, just the two of us, under the pretense of studying. I could barely focus on the book in front of me, and judging by the way Jake kept shifting in his seat, I knew he wasn't really paying attention either. There was this intensity in the air between us, the kind of energy that felt like it was only a matter of time before it exploded. The quiet was thick, like the calm before a storm, and I could sense that Jake was feeling the same way. He kept glancing at me, his gaze lingering just a little too long, and every time our eyes met, there was this unspoken agreement. This tension that we both knew had to be resolved, and soon. It was only a matter of finding the right moment, the right place. The thought alone sent a thrill through me. There was something about the secrecy of it all that made everything feel heightened, more urgent. Then, out of nowhere, Jake stood up, his body tense. He didn't say a word, just motioned for me to follow him. My heart was racing as I trailed behind him, my mind buzzing with the possibilities of what was about to happen. He led me down the hallways of the college building, taking a path that we knew would lead to a more secluded area. I didn't know where he was taking me, but I trusted him. There was a quiet determination in the way he moved, like he had made up his mind about something, and I was all in. We ended up in one of the bathroom areas at the far end of the campus, a place we knew would be mostly deserted at this time of day. Jake pushed the door open and glanced around, checking to make sure no one was inside. When he was satisfied that we were alone, he turned to me, his expression serious but filled with that same intensity I had seen earlier. Without a word, he grabbed my arm and pulled me into one of the stalls, locking the door behind us. The space was cramped, but that only added to the feeling of being hidden away from the rest of the world, in our own little bubble. Jake's body was close to mine, the heat radiating off him, and I could feel my pulse quicken as the reality of the situation sank in. Here we were, in the middle of a public college bathroom, locked away in a stall, and all I could think about was how much I wanted him. Jake didn't waste any time. He had grown bolder over the weeks, more sure of himself when it came to this thing between us. There was no hesitation as he pressed me against the wall, his hands moving over my body with a kind of urgency that I hadn't seen in him before. It was like all the tension from the past few days was coming out now, and he wasn't holding back. His touch was firm, deliberate, and I could feel the heat between us rising fast. Everything about the moment felt forbidden and reckless, but that only made it more exciting. The thought that someone could walk in at any moment, that we were doing this in such a public place, added a layer of intensity that made my heart race. But there was also something deeply intimate about it. Despite the hurried nature of it all, there was still that connection between us, that unspoken bond that had been growing stronger with each encounter. Jake's breath was hot against my neck. He was more confident now, more comfortable with himself and with me, and it showed in every move he made. This wasn't the same hesitant Jake from those first nights. He was fully in this now, and so was I. The sounds of our breathing, the soft creak of the stall door, the faint hum of the college outside, it all blended together, creating a symphony of sensations that made everything feel surreal. The world outside didn't matter in that moment. All that mattered was us, locked away in our little secret world, giving into the desire that had been building for days. When it was over, we stood there for a moment, catching our breath in the quiet of the stall. Jake leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, a slight smile playing on his lips. There was a sense of satisfaction in the air, but also a calmness that hadn't been there before. It was like we had both crossed some invisible line, one that had been drawn between us for weeks, and now that we had crossed it, there was no going back. Jake looked at me then, and I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't ashamed anymore. He wasn't running from this thing between us. If anything, he was starting to embrace it, little by little. There was no need for words, no need for explanations. We both knew what this was, and that was enough. As we left the bathroom, making sure no one saw us slip out, the adrenaline still pumping through my veins, I couldn't help but feel a sense of victory. Not just because of what had happened, but because of what it meant. Jake was no longer afraid. He had stopped fighting his feelings, stopped pretending that this wasn't something he wanted. And that, more than anything, was what made this moment so important. From that point on, our secret meetings became more frequent. We would find moments to be alone together, whether it was at his place, in the car, or even during quick breaks at school. The secrecy of it all added an element of excitement, but it also became more than just a physical connection. Jake wasn't just exploring his sexuality anymore. He was beginning to see me as his partner, even if he couldn't say it out loud yet. Over time, the awkwardness and embarrassment around me completely disappeared. He no longer felt the need to justify what we were doing or hide his attraction to me when we were alone. He didn't care about what it all meant anymore. He just accepted it. And that acceptance made everything between us even better. Jake, the guy I had admired and wanted for so long, was now someone who trusted me in a way I never thought possible. And God, was he incredible. Every time we were together, it felt like we were pushing the boundaries of what we knew about each other, exploring new sides of ourselves that had been hidden for too long. Looking back, it was incredible how far we had come from that first night in the garage. Jake had gone from being my straight best friend to someone who saw me in a way no one else ever had. He was no longer ashamed of his feelings, no longer fighting against who he was. And more than that, I helped him. Summer vacation was approaching and Jake and I went to our hometowns for 3 months. After 3 long months away for the holidays, everything changed when we finally returned to college. Those weeks apart had felt like an eternity, filled with a mix of longing and anticipation. I had missed Jake more than I could express. Sure, we texted and sent each other the occasional photo, but nothing could compare to being physically close to him, feeling his warmth beside me, or seeing that playful spark in his eyes when he looked at me. When we finally reunited on campus, the moment was electric. We met up in a quieter corner of the student union, and as soon as I spotted him, my heart raced. Jake had that confident demeanor about him, and he looked more handsome than ever, his style sharper and his body even more defined from all the workouts he had been doing. I couldn't help but admire how he had grown more comfortable in his skin, the subtle changes in his posture that spoke volumes about his self-acceptance. Our eyes locked, and without saying a word, we moved toward each other. I could feel the magnetic pull between us, and as soon as we were close enough, he wrapped his arms around me, pulling me in for a tight embrace. The warmth of his body felt like home, and I breathed him in, feeling a rush of relief and excitement all at once. After exchanging a few casual pleasantries, we both knew what we were really thinking. Our bodies were humming with a mix of desire and urgency, and the need to reconnect was palpable. Jake suggested we go back to his place, and I could hardly contain my excitement. We hurried through the campus, hearts racing as we navigated the familiar paths, a sense of urgency propelling us forward. Once inside his apartment, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The door clicked shut behind us, and suddenly, it was just the two of us, freed from the outside world. I glanced around, noticing how little had changed since I had last been there. The same posters adorned the walls, and the smell of his cologne lingered in the air. But everything felt different now, more charged, more intimate. It was as if all the anticipation from those 3 months apart had condensed into this single moment. Jake looked at me, his eyes sparkling with mischief and longing. Without breaking eye contact, he stepped closer, his hand reaching out to caress my cheek. I felt an electric thrill at his touch, the simple gesture igniting a fire within me that I had been yearning to feel for so long. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. He knew exactly what he wanted, and I felt it resonate within me as well. He leaned in, and our lips met in a gentle yet urgent kiss. It started slow, both of us savoring the moment, but soon it deepened. My hands found their way to his back, pulling him closer as the kiss grew more passionate. I could feel the heat radiating off him, the warmth of his body igniting every nerve ending in my skin. It was like everything else melted away. All that existed was this moment, this connection. Jake broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine. We were both breathing heavily, and I could see the desire reflected in his eyes. He reached down, his fingers intertwining with mine, and led me toward his bedroom. The anticipation hung thick in the air, and every step felt electric as I followed him. As soon as we stepped inside, Jake turned to me, a playful grin on his face. The room was dimly lit, a soft glow illuminating the space. He pulled me in for another kiss, this time more urgent, more demanding. My heart raced as I melted into him, our bodies pressing together. I could feel the hard planes of his chest against mine, and it sent waves of desire coursing through me. Jake pushed me gently backward until my legs hit the bed, and I fell onto it, looking up at him as he hovered over me. The look in his eyes was a mix of hunger and tenderness, and it made my heart skip a beat. He climbed onto the bed beside me, our bodies inches apart, and I could feel the electricity crackling between us. With a newfound boldness, he leaned down, kissing me again, his hands roaming over my body. He explored my chest, tracing his fingers along the contours of my torso, igniting sensations that made me arch into him. The anticipation was almost unbearable. It had been so long since we had been together like this. I could feel my body responding to him instinctively, craving his touch, his warmth. As he kissed a trail down my neck, I gasped, feeling the heat of his breath against my skin. Every kiss sent shivers down my spine, igniting the fire within me. I couldn't help but reach for him, my hands gripping his shirt, pulling him closer as I felt the urgency of the moment. I needed him as much as he needed me, and the desire was consuming. Jake pulled back for a moment, gazing into my eyes with a look of pure intensity. There was a spark of vulnerability there, but also a deep-seated passion. He leaned in closer again, his lips brushing against mine, and I could feel the heat radiating between us, building with each passing second. With a playful smile, he shifted his position, moving to straddle my waist. The weight of him felt incredible, and I could feel every muscle in his body as he pressed down against me. He leaned forward, capturing my lips in another heated kiss, and I could feel the connection between us deepen. It was as if every longing, every desire from the past few months had finally found its release in this moment. As our kisses grew more passionate, Jake's hands explored my body with an urgency that made my heart race. He traced his fingers along my sides, sending shivers of pleasure through me. I could feel the heat rising between us, the chemistry palpable. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of us lost in each other. With each passing moment, we fell deeper into this connection, our bodies moving instinctively together. I could feel the rhythm of our breaths synchronizing, and the world around us faded away. The intensity of the moment made my heart race, and I could feel my body responding to his touch, urging him closer. Our clothes came off in a flurry of movement, each piece discarded carelessly as we lost ourselves in the heat of the moment. The feeling of skin against skin ignited a fire within me that I had been yearning for during those long months apart. I could feel every inch of him against me, the warmth of his body contrasting with the cool air of the room. As we kissed, his hands roamed freely, exploring every inch of my body with a newfound confidence. He knew me now, knew what I liked, and he was eager to show me just how much he had missed me. The passion was all-consuming, each kiss and touch making me feel more alive than I ever had before. We moved together, finding a rhythm that felt natural, our bodies instinctively knowing what the other needed. Every sigh, every gasp was met with an equal response, a beautiful harmony of connection and intimacy that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the tension building within me, and I knew Jake was feeling it too. With each kiss, each touch, the world outside faded completely. It was just us, lost in our own universe, wrapped up in the magic of the moment. The intimacy between us felt like a dream, and as we surrendered to the sensations, I realized that this was everything I had ever wanted. In that space, there was no judgment, no shame, just pure, unfiltered connection. We were finally free to explore each other without holding back, and it felt incredible. I could sense Jake's eagerness, his need to fully experience this side of himself with me. As the night unfolded, we found ourselves lost in each other, moving in perfect sync, our bodies entwined in a way that felt natural and right. Each moment was filled with discovery, each kiss a promise of more to come. It was as if all the months of longing had culminated in this one incredible night, and I was grateful for every second of it. Eventually, as we lay tangled in each other's arms, our breathing finally slowing, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of happiness. Jake looked down at me, and for the first time, there was no uncertainty in his eyes, just warmth and contentment. It felt as if we had crossed a threshold, leaving behind the confusion and uncertainty of the past and stepping into something new and beautiful. In that moment, I knew that we were building something special, something that went beyond just physical attraction. This was about connection, trust, and love, something I had always dreamed of. The spark that had ignited between us was still there, and I knew we had so much more to explore together. As we drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's warmth, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had come so far, and I couldn't wait to see where this journey would take us next.